So recently, another one of Xi Jinping's confidants, this Huang Kunming, has reportedly run into some trouble. And apparently, according to what people are saying, he's tangled up in all sorts of dealings with China's richest.
Zhang Yiming, the #1 tycoon Xi's era built, now simply refuses to come home. That alone is indirect proof that Xi Jinping's family and this whole batch of core officials right around him are on shaky, risky ground right now. Real risk, real...
During his time running propaganda work in the past, Huang Kunming gave enormous direct backing to this. To a very large extent, it was Huang working behind the scenes, pulling strings.
Zhang Yiming is also from Longyan, Fujian, same as Huang Kunming, a genuine hometown tie. ByteDance's murky fortune with the Huang family entangled is a political time bomb.
In the late Ming dynasty, right before Li Zicheng's rebels broke through Beijing, Emperor Chongzhen told those around him, "I am not a ruler who lost the empire. It's my ministers who..."
The Chinese communist leadership is having its own Hua Guofeng moment. Hua Guofeng was left with nothing but an empty title, no power left. I think Xi Jinping is going through the exact same process right now.
Hello everyone, welcome to Pinnacle Forum. I'm your host, Shishan. What's so bizarre, so strange about Chinese communist politics is that it runs entirely on a black box, and the underlying logic of Chinese communist politics is... Lately, over this recent stretch of time, quite a few senior Chinese communist officials have gone down. The Politburo member, Ma Xingrui, who was just publicly placed under double investigation. And then there's Chen Xi, who was suddenly and abruptly removed as head of the Central Party School. He too is one of Xi Jinping's core trusted loyalists. And actually, Zhang Yuxia, who was stripped of his post as vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, used to be Xi Jinping's staunch diehard ally within the military. Recently, another one of Xi Jinping's confidants, this Huang Kunming, has reportedly run into some trouble. And apparently, according to what people are saying, he's tangled up in all sorts of dealings with China's richest man. So let's dig into this question today. Joining us on the show today, we have veteran media figure Ms. Guo, that's Ms. Guo herself, and also joining her, independent filmmaker Mr. And we're also very fortunate today to have US-based independent political commentator Mr. Kai Shenkun joining us. All right, so before we get into the show today, as always, we can't skip a word about Puritang's Black Ginseng products, so let's talk about that first. We've had some feedback recently. One, for instance, was from a friend of ours based in the US who rushed back to China in a hurry to be with his mother, whose health, unfortunately, wasn't doing too well at the time. Before that emergency trip home, he made sure to bring along some of Puritang's traditional old method 9 times steamed, 9 times sun-dried black ginseng products. He had the old lady take 2 packets of it every single day. After a while, quite some time actually, the old lady's energy, physical strength... Now, apparently, according to what we heard, she's not just able to go outside normally like before. She can take walks and can even do some... Naturally, her family was absolutely thrilled to see this. And then there's another friend of ours who, right after a surgery, was quite weak physically. He said, in his own words, that he'd get chills and actually shiver just from taking a shower. And after he kept taking Puritang's Black Ginseng products on a regular basis, things improved a great deal. Both his energy levels and his appetite were much. So all his friends who saw him told him he didn't look at all like someone who'd just been through a major surgery and a serious illness. There's actually quite a lot of feedback like this. We often say that the body's vital energy, its underlying reserves, can get depleted over time. And this is exactly when using a truly top-grade black ginseng product can do a deep. So, when you're checking out to buy Puritang's Black Ginseng products, remember to go ahead and enter our exclusive Pinnacle Forum discount code JYLT. That's the first letters of the pinyin for the words Pinnacle Forum, and you'll get free shipping worldwide on your order. There are also gifts once you hit certain amounts. Spend $500 and you get a stick of the original ginseng. Spend $3,000 and they'll send you what's called a top-grade original ginseng. This deal, honestly, is a rare one. So we hope anyone who's interested takes the chance. And we do want to take this particular moment to thank all of you sincerely for your continued... All right, let's get back to our show now. So first, let me ask old Kai here. I noticed you've done some recent segments on your own show talking about Huang Kunming. So Kai, what's going on with Huang Kunming? What happened?
Whether something's happened to Huang Kunming, I can't say for sure. But there's one thing directly connected to him. China's so-called richest man, the largest shareholder and founder of ByteDance, Zhang Yiming, is now refusing to return to China. Oh, China has obviously, quite clearly, done everything within its power. But from what we understand, he has no plan to return. Because once he goes back, he feels the risk to him is too great. Think about it for a moment. A company like that, one this size. There's word going around that Huang Kunming is secretly the one behind it, that his family is actually ByteDance's largest shareholder. There's even talk going around that it's tangled up in some kind of dispute over ByteDance's equity, that there are supposedly at least 2 Politburo Standing Committee members, and as many as 3. So facing all these rumors circulating, Zhang Yiming's refusal to come back may be under pressure from a number of different directions at once. On one hand, he's genuinely scared for himself. And on the other hand, it may also be that these powerful party figures who hold large hidden stakes in ByteDance are actively pressuring him to stay away. Because the moment he comes back, he'd have to start answering questions. And with the 21st Congress approaching, and everything so tangled and complicated right now, that could end up burning. It could touch on that whole issue. As for exactly what role Huang Kunming plays in all this, or how much say his family really has in it, we still don't know. The word is coming from China, so the story is only what's leaking out from inside. Right.
Right? From what I know, Huang Kunming used to be in charge of, well, producing all kinds of propaganda coverage for Xi Jinping back when they were both in Zhejiang. Later on, once Xi Jinping rose all the way up to the very top, Huang essentially moved on over to head the Central Propaganda Department. So tell us, walk us through this. Exactly what role does Huang Kunming actually play within Xi's whole inner circle, and just how important a figure is he, really?
We know that after Xi Jinping took power, he mainly relied on what people call the 3 staffs: the gun, the knife, and the pen. Take the gun, for instance. He's kept purging it constantly, over and over. And even now, to this day, it's still not fully, completely under his control. Then there's the knife. You look at the whole arc from the Zhou Yongkang era, through to Meng Jianzhu afterward, and then Guo Shenkun, all of these were part of the Jiang Zemin camp, all the way up until Wang Xiaohong finally took the Ministry of Public Security's power away from that camp. And then, on the other hand, the pen, I'd say, is what Xi Jinping actually grabbed hold of the very earliest. Or you could even say, right from the very start of his term in office. We know that right when he first took office, the head of the Central Propaganda Department at the time was a man named Liu Qibao, who belonged to the Hu Jintao camp politically. Liu himself, once he was in office. So at the time, facing his own executive deputy minister, this Huang Kunming here, Liu basically went ahead and cooperated with him actively, and never once put Huang in an awkward or embarrassing position. Right after the 18th Congress, when Xi formally took power, the pen went straight into Huang Kunming's hands. Once Huang got hold of the pen, the whole direction of public opinion and propaganda took a major turn. But the real turning point, of course, was around that 2016 timeframe. We know that starting in 2016, right around that time, CCTV declared its loyalty to the party. Before 2016, Xi was still busy with the anti-corruption campaign, clearing out Jiang Zemin's and Hu Jintao's people. A whole cohort with influence across party and government hadn't yet gotten around to the media and public opinion sphere. Once the anti-corruption drive had basically wound down and come to a stop, he moved directly on to take over propaganda and public opinion work entirely. So the trend we're seeing here is very clear. After 2016, a lot of media people, and that includes journalists and website operators too, all clearly felt that things after 2016 were nothing like before. Before 2016, it was still, in a sense, a continuation of the relatively open policies from the Hu-Wen, that kind of policy. But of course, starting from 2016 onward, control over public opinion tightened up even further. And that's exactly when, from that point on. So, in other words, on one hand, he tightened the screws considerably, and yet on the other hand. So the fact that ByteDance has become the massive, giant-sized company it is today has a lot to do with Huang Kunming personally cultivating and backing it. And there's also someone like Zhang Yiming. He himself is from Fujian, and he and Huang Kunming share this kind of traditional, deep-rooted personal bond and loyalty between them. So there was clearly a deliberate push to back and cultivate someone like Zhang Yiming, all in order to make sure control over future public opinion and propaganda would stay.
Right. After Xi Jinping and his people came to power, this whole group of theirs knocked down so many platform companies, all kinds of high-tech firms, but the ones that came out on top, like Catel from Fujian and ByteDance, also from Fujian, from Zhang Yiming. So Zhang, do you think this tech company of Zhang Yiming's is really that formidable? His company?
This whole Zhang Yiming situation really needs spelling out clearly, because if you don't understand how big a chess piece he's holding, you still won't understand just how serious this Huang Kunming matter really is. Zhang Yiming's fortune, as Mr. Kai just said, this year he officially secured his spot as China's richest man, and also the wealthiest person in the whole Chinese-speaking world. Forbes puts his net worth at $65.5 billion, built entirely off one internet company in just a little over a decade. That's extremely rare in China's history of self-made fortunes. Look at his shareholding. Public filings show he personally holds about 34%. The second largest shareholder is Sequoia, very sensitive. And there's also another 30% of the shares that are undisclosed, supposedly held by executives and by people deemed.
Some special contributors hold shares.
But exactly whose pockets that money ends up in, we'll get to that in a bit. Now look at what he's actually achieved. Zhang Yiming's company is absolutely not just the short video app that people picture in their heads when they think of him. He actually built Toutiao right. To say Zhang Yiming's company is way out ahead in new media wouldn't be an exaggeration at all. Because those Western companies trying to get into the China market can't even get through the door, while he eats from both sides. Making money on both sides. That kind of position. Now, you won't find another tech company anywhere in the world quite exactly.
So then, do you actually think this relationship people keep talking about between Zhang Yiming and Huang Kunming is really truly real? Or is it just some mysterious rumor going around? Or is it because, you see, Zhang Yiming is in Singapore right now and he's absolutely refusing to come back? I'd have to guess this has to be Huang Kunming himself telling him to stay away, if that's really, truly true. Because that 30-some% of shares held by so-called special contributors, who exactly, really, is that? Who's really behind that package? We still don't know, right?
Right, so to really explain this Zhang Yiming and Huang Kunming connection properly, we first need to lay out clearly Huang Kunming's whole relationship with Xi Jinping. Otherwise, it sounds completely baffling. Well, how exactly does a propaganda official, the party secretary of Guangdong, end up with such deep, tangled ties to a short video tech mogul? Huang Kunming, as Mr. Kai just mentioned a moment ago, he's actually from Shanghang in Longyan, Fujian province. He's basically followed right in Xi Jinping's footsteps, step by step, all the way through Fujian and then Zhejiang. By 2013, he was already in Beijing as deputy head of the propaganda department. By 2014, he'd been promoted to executive deputy head. And by 2017, he formally rose all the way up to head of the central propaganda department. At that particular point in time, he had the entire machinery of China's ideology and propaganda system firmly, tightly gripped in his own two hands. He held that particular post for a full 8 years, all the way until after the 20th Congress. So Huang Kunming's relationship with Xi Jinping really isn't something you can just sum up with the ordinary word confidant. It's over 30 years now, spanning 2 whole provinces, their fates tied together, very much like it was with Chen Shi. He's at the level of Xi's household retainer. Only a handful qualify for that. As for Zhang Yiming, the coincidence is that he's also from Longyan, Fujian. Oh, and it's not just Fujians. The two of them were actually born in the same county. Right, that's right. From Yongding in Longyan, he and Huang Kunming share genuine, unmistakable hometown ties. You could honestly even call it a same-county connection between the two of them. People from Fujian really do value this kind of thing. Geography, hometown ties, that's what matters most in Chinese officialdom. Same hometown, same county. That kind of natural bond of trust matters more, honestly, than any contract or equity agreement ever could. ByteDance was founded in 2012, and that year happened to be the 18th Congress, right? Xi had just taken over, and the propaganda apparatus was about to turn, slowly turning into Huang Kunming. If you actually trace the whole timeline of Tutiao, then Douyin, then TikTok, how all of that expanded over time, it lines up almost perfectly, seamlessly, with the 8 years Huang Kunming spent running the propaganda department. So this really isn't one-sided patronage at all. It's genuinely mutual backing. So Huang Kunming introduced Zhang Yiming directly to Xi Jinping. And once that particular connection was made and locked in, it was essentially like, without that passport, Zhang Yiming's empire couldn't exist. Right. Like,
especially since you're in the news business, right? In China, Mr. Kai should know this very well.
Well, it's like, like Jack Ma himself once said, talking about the banks. He said with Alipay, we all know once you get Alipay approved.
Right. Alipay itself isn't really high-tech, not in itself, right? The key is whether China's banking authorities, whether the financial regulator will let you do it, right? The key is having the Zhang family's backing.
Right. And a lot of overseas leaks out there say that through complex arrangements of proxy shareholdings and offshore funds, the Huang Kunming family holds enormous sway across ByteDance's various entities, sharing in the massive profits of this whole unicorn company together with Zhang Yiming himself. Zhang Yiming is in Singapore now, flatly refusing to come home. The 21st Congress is coming up and the reshuffle has already started. So, Ma Xingri got double expelled, and Chen Xi was forced into retirement, and then Zhang Yuxia, well, he was arrested too. Xi's most core loyalists are falling one after another. You could say what Zhang Yiming's actually holding on to might be like a shield guarding the door to the Huang Kunming family's whole fortune. Or alternatively, if he's ever coaxed back home and put under exit controls. At best, he'd hand over full control. At worst, he'd be forced to give up Huang Kunming. And even more evidence higher up. So the fact that he's refusing to come back isn't purely about him being afraid something bad will happen to him personally. It may well be that he's standing guard, keeping watch. I mean, look, given the whole background of how you actually built your fortune in the first place, it's only natural, really. In other words, whether Zhang Yiming dares to go back has become a kind of thermometer. It's not measuring his personal nerve. It's measuring whether Xi Jinping's whole power system, this whole camp, is actually stable right now. Whenever Zhang Yiming dares to swagger openly back into Beijing, that will really tell everyone that Xi Jinping's faction has secured its footing in the power struggle. Right, fully secure. As long as he keeps holed up in Singapore and won't come back, that tells you these waters are still deep and murky.
Right. Has Huang Kunming standing in Guangdong actually loosened up a bit too? There's been a lot of talk online lately saying that the next target of Xi's inner Fujian circle might well be Huang Kunming. You mentioned earlier this whole personnel shakeup among the senior Guangdong officials, right? Because it involves people like Ma Xingrui and also Li Xi. And that whole crowd, including the Guangzhou party secretary, whose name was Guo Yonghang, right, they've all, most recently, all gone down. So it seems Xu Taifeng is putting his own people in there now, right? It does seem like there's been movement and reaction in Guangdong's officialdom, hasn't there?
Actually, the recent arrangements within Guangdong's political circle are pretty intriguing too. They're all outsiders to the existing system entirely. So once these particular people got transferred in, these are all central government appointments. It's drawing a lot of outside attention. Now, outside observers watching this purge of the Fujian camp all sense the next target is Huang Kunming, and that's clearly not coming out of nowhere. So the first thing is, this ByteDance fortune black box. The Huang Kunming family is deeply entangled in it, and it's a political bomb that could go off at any moment. And second, in Guangdong, the province where he's actually in charge. Huang Kunming's current position honestly looks a lot like Chen Xi's did right before he was sidelined, outwardly promoted but actually demoted underneath.
So Li Jun, when it comes to Ma Xingri, since we're talking Guangdong, Ma Xingri naturally comes to mind. He used to be governor of Guangdong, then got transferred to Xinjiang. He's now officially double regulated, right? What does the official statement say his main crimes are?
On July 14th, Xinhua formally announced that Ma Xingrui has been expelled from the party and stripped of his public post. Double expelled. Right. Power for sex trades and money for sex trades as well. That sounds like it involves sex offences. Using his position and influence for enormous gains. Running rampant family corruption, extremely serious in nature. This really sounds like the pattern of misconduct we've seen before in Guangdong. Extremely bad. This is the first time officials have disclosed the specifics of Ma Xingrui's case. Looking at the timeline here, when the investigation was first announced back on April 3rd, it only said he was suspected of serious violations of... But today's official double expulsion notice went right ahead and directly called out power for sex trading as well as family corruption. The general view outside is that this whole thing means the case is basically wrapped up already, with fairly solid evidence behind it. What's still just rumour at this stage is that the official notice doesn't actually name his family members' specific charges or sentencing. It only characterises it broadly as rampant family corruption of an extremely serious nature. So then, as for Ma Xingrui, he's also one of Xi Jinping's household retainers, right? The head of the so-called Shandong faction, once a glittering, powerful regional player, is now, looking at things realistically, very likely facing a severe sentence.
Right. So let me ask old Kai about this. This whole Guangdong business, Mr. Kai might actually know something. Actually, I think Ma Xingrui's problem should really be centered mainly in Guangdong, right? It shouldn't really be a Xinjiang-based problem at all. Is that correct?
Both are serious problems. Oh. In Guangdong, we know that it was actually when he was serving in Guangdong that Ma Xingrui first truly began getting. Because before that particular period, Ma Xingrui's rise mainly depended on, well, the Zhang Qinghong faction, or, to put it more precisely. Then, once Xi Jinping came to power, Ma Xingrui, quite naturally and smoothly, became a kind of close aide within that so-called inner circle, because, you see, the Ma Xingrui family had, back in the past, a very close, deep connection with the Peng Liyuan family. So we've actually touched on this before, many times, but before Xi Jinping formally took over the full reins of power. You can see it clearly. Once Xi took power, he directly parachuted Ma from a vice minister post at the tech ministry straight into Guangdong, a strong sign that Guangdong's party secretary back then was someone Xi Jinping kept very close, careful tabs on. That was Hu Chunhua. Think about it. Ma Xingrui went there carrying a special mandate, essentially with an imperial sword in hand. After he arrived there, Hu Chunhua understood the situation perfectly well, especially after Sun Zhengkai was taken down, at which point Hu already knew that the whole succession question had basically become a moot, meaningless point. So Hu was the first to start pledging loyalty to Xi Jinping. Pledging loyalty, on anything big or small, he'd consult Ma Xingrui, even though Hu himself was a Politburo member. So you can see, after Ma Xingrui arrived, he started out as head of the Political Legal Affairs Commission and deputy party secretary, and then, quite quickly also, after a stint serving as Shenzhen party secretary, he moved straight on up to. In the official notice, from what we saw just yesterday about the case being formally handed over to judicial authorities, it made absolutely no mention of any political issue at all. Clearly, the political angle was. That group is reportedly enormous. Politburo Standing Committee members, Politburo members, and family who benefited through Ma Xingrui. But if they went after everyone now, Xi's whole team could fall apart. So this notice also made no mention of any political issue. Right. That tells you that, politically speaking, Xi Jinping still, more or less, genuinely approves of Ma Xingrui. And more importantly, I think Peng Liyuan may have gone ahead and distanced herself from any political angle at this critical moment. Or perhaps she put in a good word for Ma Xingrui in front of Xi Jinping directly, which is why she may have let him off the hook at the very last. But as for his family members, and also his secretary's corruption issues, from what we're hearing, from the messages coming through to us, it could very well be treated harshly, quite possibly even facing the death penalty.
This case really is unusual. It's purely economic, with nothing political attached at all. You've got people like Zhang Yuxia and also He Weidong. All of those particular cases came with very specific political language attached to describe the issue at hand, same as it was with Sun Zhengkai, the former Politburo member himself. So this one really is honestly a little bit strange, this whole thing.
Actually, this Chen Xi's current situation is getting even more attention right now. Because Chen Xi, over these past dozen-plus years, has really been the key core figure behind building this whole personnel network. Over Xi's 14 years, Chen Xi's role was far more than an ordinary organization department head. The power sitting in his hands let him place his own people into position after position, all across the entire country, and remove anyone who wouldn't. So he wasn't just head of the organization department and president of the Central Party School. He also simultaneously ran the Jinggangshan Party School, the Shanghai Party School, the Pudong Party School.
Those party schools, those 3 schools, are all directly under the organization department.
Right? And every high-level cadre has to report there before promotion to burnish their credentials and show where their loyalties lie. So you can imagine one single man holding the presidency of that many party schools all at once, plus effectively also being head of the organization department, controlled both the gateway to every party appointment and the gateway to ideological vetting, all in just one pair of hands. That concentration of power is extremely rare in party history. So right now, on the eve of the 21st Congress, the central ministries and every province's top leaders are in the middle of the most crucial reshuffling and repositioning. So taking Chen Shi down at this particular moment effectively speeds things up. It pulls out in one go the very root of the entire personnel network that Xi Jinping spent a full 14 years building. So the next round of reshuffling can go faster and much more thoroughly.
Sometimes, as they say, you can't see the true face of the mountain because you're standing inside it. But he can't see it. This situation is actually quite dangerous. So, like we've said before, this Zhang Yiming really is quite a smart guy. Never go back, because sometimes, you know, once you actually go back home, who really knows what could happen to you? They may have already sensed it.
Ever since Xi came to power, his whole inner circle is now running into trouble. The so-called Xi camp, as you just said a moment ago, the Fujian faction, the Zhejiang faction, the Shandong faction, the Tsinghua faction, and the military-industrial system, they all worked together for years and years and formed their own factional networks, becoming the main team that drove his power forward, right? But it's true that from 2023 up until now, these systems have run into major problems one after another. It's like the whole Xi camp has fires breaking out everywhere inside it.
So, Ms. Go, I have to say Xi Jinping's core people really do seem to be falling one after another, don't they? As the party leader, if Xi Jinping actually wants to keep hold of power going forward, he genuinely needs a solid. This kind of purge happening right now really goes against, how should I put it, the basic underlying logic of how power is supposed to operate. Do you think it's simply that he's grown far too paranoid and is just taking everyone down himself? How do you see this?
My own personal judgment on this is that the Chinese communist leadership, right? What's a Hua Guofeng moment? Hua Guofeng was the successor Mao Zedong personally anointed. With you in charge, I'm at ease. On the surface, his party general secretary, premier of the State Council and chairman of the Central Military Commission. But in actual reality, once Deng Xiaoping came back into power, the approach he used was this: let him keep the title on paper, but strip away all the real actual power underneath. Step by step, Hua Guofeng's own team around him and the real power in his hands were completely hollowed out and gutted clean, until in the end, I think Xi Jinping is going through the exact same process right now. Next year, the 21st Congress is going to bring a full leadership transition, a complete reshuffle of the Central Committee, and that's simply a rigid, built-in procedural requirement of how the whole political system operates. What the Communist Party fears most is an open, ugly, face-tearing power struggle right at the top of the succession that would shake the very legitimacy of the whole regime. So the safest, most stable approach really is to keep Xi Jinping's title fully intact on the surface. Let him keep sitting there as General Secretary in order to preserve the outward appearance of state. But underneath the surface, the entire power network that he built with his own 2 hands over these 14 years. Ma Xingrui's double expulsion, that's dismantling the technocrat system. Chen Shi hollowed out, that's dismantling the personnel system's foundation. He Weidong and Miao Hua, that's dismantling the military side of things. And now, on top of that, Huang Kunming has people planted around him in Guangdong, while ByteDance's murky fortune is being peeled open. Shang Yuxi suddenly coming under attack like this. That's precisely a sign that as Xi Jinping senses his own power quietly being hollowed out around him, he's actually pushing back against it, fighting Xi Jinping's core lieutenants falling one after another like this. This is absolutely. There is no leader anywhere who would, on the very eve of his own leadership transition. That doesn't fit the logic of power. So the only explanation is that Xi's camp is being hollowed out from outside, layer by layer. Zhang Yiming is, you could say, the #1 tycoon that Xi Jinping's whole era built up with its own 2 hands, and the shield standing behind him is, to put it plainly, he's flatly refusing, no matter what anyone says, to come back to China right now, and that fact alone is indirect proof that Xi Jinping's family, and this whole batch of core,
So, on the surface today, what we're really looking at here is Huang Kunming, Zhang Yiming ByteDance. This kind of business and politics relationship, which honestly is extremely common throughout China. But whatever happens within these particular relationships actually reflects. This is also in itself a sign of what direction Xi Jinping's entire power system might be heading in, what changes. Of course, with figures like Ma Xingrui, Chen Xi, and Zhang Yuxia all falling one after another like this, along with these unusual moves happening in Guangdong, I do genuinely find it hard to explain all of this. Because right now, before the 21st Congress even happens, the real underlying fight probably isn't really about who rises and who falls at all. It's really about whether Xi can keep holding on, keeping military power, personnel power and financial power, all of it, firmly gripped together. At this critical moment, with all of this power being hollowed out like this, I think, however you look at it, it really doesn't look like the picture of someone who's got full control and total confidence in himself. So I really do honestly, sincerely feel that this ultimate power showdown happening in Beijing right now has already entered into its single most dangerous phase yet. Of course, well, just like Ms. Guo herself says, let's just sit back, relax, and wait and see how this whole story unfolds in the end. All right, so thank you so very much to our 3 wonderful guests joining us today, and thank you all, of course, for watching. We'll see you all again next time on the show.